Look, we all love a good hack and slash, right? That visceral feeling of slicing through enemies, the satisfying clangs of steel, the pure, unadulterated action. So I've compiled a list of 15 hack and slash games that, trust me, you absolutely need to experience. We're talking about games that deliver on that core fantasy, games that offer incredible combat, and games that, well, are just plain fun. So, if you're looking for your next action-packed adventure, stick around because I've got you covered. Let's get into it. Devil May Cry 5. So Devil May Cry 5 is just one of those games, man. You pick it up, play for like 5 minutes, and immediately go, yep, this is some peak action gaming right here. It's got that smooth, addictive combat that just feels better the more you play. Every hit, every dodge, every insane mid-air combo. There's this level of polish that makes you feel like an absolute god once you start getting the hang of it. And the best part is, no matter how crazy skilled you get, the game always pushes you to go even further. You land a sick combo, and instead of thinking, nice, I did it, you immediately start thinking about how you can make it look even cooler next time. That's the kind of game this is, and the variety is just insane. You don't just get one playstyle and stick with it. You've got 3 completely different characters, each with their own ridiculous movesets. Nero is the easiest to get into. He's got that grappling hook arm that lets him pull enemies in or launch himself straight at them, plus his sword revs up like a damn motorcycle to add extra damage to his swings. And then there's his devil breakers, which are basically these crazy robotic arms that give him new abilities depending on which one he's got equipped. You can shoot a massive energy beam, freeze time, ride a freaking rocket punch like a skateboard. It's just pure chaos in the best way possible. Then you've got V, who plays completely different from any other character in the series. Instead of fighting directly, he controls 3 summoned creatures: a panther that slashes enemies, a bird that shoots lightning, and a giant freaking demon that smashes everything in sight. And here's the wild part, you actually have to finish enemies off yourself after your summons weaken them. So you're just hanging back, commanding these beasts to do all the dirty work, then strolling up all cool and collected to land the finishing blow. Feels like playing on easy mode at first, but once the game starts throwing tougher enemies at you, you realize you actually have to manage all 3 creatures at once while dodging attacks, which makes it surprisingly intense.
Pardon me.
And then there's Dante. I don't even know where to start with this dude. He's got so many weapons and fighting styles that it almost feels illegal. One second you're slicing through demons with a sword, the next you're juggling them in the air with dual pistols, and then out of nowhere you pull out a goddamn motorcycle that splits in half and turns into 2 giant chainsaws. And that's not even mentioning his different combat styles that let you change how he moves and attacks mid-fight. Trickster gives him crazy mobility, Swordmaster unlocks even more ridiculous melee moves, Gunslinger turns his ranged weapons into something out of an anime, and Royal Guard lets you block and counter like some kind of god-tier parry master. The way you can mix and match all of this in real time just makes combat feel unreal. And I haven't even gotten into how good the presentation is. This game is straight up gorgeous. Capcom went all in with the RE engine, and it shows. The character models look insanely detailed, the environments are drenched in style, and every single attack, every single movement just oozes personality. The animations alone make combat satisfying. There's just something about the way Dante twirls his sword or Nero revs up his Red Queen that makes you want to keep playing just to see how smooth everything looks. God of War 3. This game is straight up legendary. It's the kind of hack and slash that doesn't just go hard, it goes absolutely nuclear from the very first second. If you ever wanted to feel like an unstoppable force of destruction, this is the game. Kratos isn't just mad in this one, he's on a whole other level of pissed off. And it shows in every single brutal, over-the-top, holy shit, did that just happen moment. The game starts immediately throwing hands. No slow build-up, no filler, just straight up chaos. You're literally climbing Mount Olympus, riding on the back of freaking Gaia, going to war with the gods themselves. And the first boss fight? It's Poseidon. Not some random monster, not some mid-tier general. Poseidon, the god of the freaking sea. You beat the absolute hell out of him, tear him apart in one of the most insane quick-time events ever, and by the time that fight is over, you already know this game isn't here to mess around. And that's just the beginning. God of War 3 is all about escalation. Every fight, every boss, every set piece somehow manages to be even crazier than the last. You thought fighting Poseidon was wild? Wait until you're straight up snapping Hermes' legs, crushing Hercules with his own gauntlets, or literally tearing off Hades' soul with your bare hands. It's not just about killing these gods, it's about brutalizing them in a way that makes sure they're never coming back. And the gameplay is just buttery smooth. The Blades of Exile feel absolutely perfect to use, and combat has that fast, fluid, satisfying flow where you're constantly dodging, parrying, and chaining together attacks without even thinking about it. The game lets you switch weapons on the fly too, and for once, all of them feel good. The Claws of Hades have this sick soul-stealing effect, the Nemean Cestus hit like a damn freight train, and the Nemesis Whip is basically a lightning-infused chainsaw whip that shreds through enemies. Every weapon has its own brutal finishing moves, and the game makes sure you see every single one of them in all their gory, blood-soaked glory. And man, let's talk about the scale of this game because it's just ridiculous. This was back on the PS3, but somehow it still looks and feels massive even today. The camera pulls back to show these absurdly huge environments, and you always feel like you're in the middle of something huge. The Titans are some of the craziest set pieces ever, just these colossal moving levels that you're literally climbing and fighting on. The fact that you're actually battling gods and Titans at this level of scale makes the whole thing feel like a playable myth on steroids. Bayonetta 3. Right from the jump, this game wastes no time letting you know it's going to be bigger, crazier, and more ridiculous than ever. The story goes full multiverse nonsense, and honestly, it doesn't even matter. You're not here for a deep emotional narrative, you're here to watch Bayonetta dance through bullets, slice up enemies in slow motion, and summon giant demons to absolutely wreck whatever poor soul happens to be in front of her. And in Bayonetta 3, the demon summoning system is the real game changer. You don't just call them in for quick finishers anymore, you control them mid-battle. You're literally standing in the middle of a fight, directing a skyscraper-sized demon to stomp on enemies like it's no big deal, and somehow it all flows perfectly into the combat without slowing anything down. And speaking of combat, Bayonetta 3 has some of the most satisfying, fluid, and just straight up fun action I've ever seen in a game. The way combos link together, the way you can dodge at the perfect moment to activate witch time, the way every weapon has its own absurdly unique playstyle is just awesome fun. One second you're slicing through enemies with a giant bladed fan, the next you're swinging a demonic yo-yo like some kind of high-speed murder machine. The weapons in this game are straight up bonkers, and the best part, every single one of them feels incredible to use. And then there's Viola. Now, let's be real, whenever a game introduces a new playable character in a series where the main character is already near perfect, people get nervous, and I get it. But honestly, Viola is fun. She plays completely differently from Bayonetta, with a heavier focus on parrying instead of dodging, and her playstyle has a more aggressive, in-your-face feel. Plus, she's got this whole punk rock vibe going on, complete with a katana and a demon cat named Cheshire that fights for her. It takes some getting used to, but once you figure her out, she actually adds a nice change of pace to the game. And man, the set pieces in this game. Platinum Games just doesn't care about logic anymore, and I love it. You're running up collapsing buildings, fighting on the side of a moving train, surfing on a demon dragon while dodging lasers, and at one point, I'm pretty sure you straight up turn into a giant spider and start web-slinging around like Bayonetta's been studying Spider-Man. It's all so over the top, so ridiculous, and yet somehow, it never feels like too much. Every chapter just leaves you thinking, there's no way they can top that, and then they do. Presentation-wise, okay, yeah, it's a Switch game, so it's not exactly running at 4K 120 FPS, but you know what? It doesn't even matter. The art direction is so damn good that even when the resolution dips, the game still looks sick, the animations are buttery smooth, the enemy designs are top tier, and the sheer style of it all just carries the whole thing. If you've played the previous Bayonetta games, Bayonetta 3 is an easy must play. It's bigger, crazier, and somehow even more stylish than before, and if you're new to the series, this is hack and slash at its absolute peak. No one does it like Bayonetta. NieR Automata. This game is something else. You go in thinking it's just another stylish action game where you slice up robots, but nah, it's way more than that. It's one of those rare games that actually sticks with you, messes with your head, makes you question everything. It's got that Platinum Games combat, fast, fluid, absolutely satisfying, but underneath all that, it's got a story that punches you in the gut and doesn't let up. Combat feels like second nature once you get into the flow. You're flipping through the air, dodging at the last second, weaving combos together without even thinking about it. Light and heavy attacks mix mix beautifully, weapons feel weighty but snappy, and dodging at the perfect moment kicks in slow motion witch time style counters that make you feel like a god, and you're never just hacking away either. You've got your floating pod buddy throwing out ranged attacks while you're cutting through enemies up close, so it's always this mix of melee and gunplay happening at once. Movement feels buttery smooth too. No clunky animations, no delays, just pure action uninterrupted. But forget the mechanics for a second, the story is insane. Starts off simple, you play as 2B, a cold, no-nonsense android soldier sent down to Earth to fight off machine enemies. You're partnered up with 9S, a more talkative, emotional type who handles hacking and recon. The whole mission? Wipe out the machines so humans can reclaim the planet. Straightforward enough. But the more you go on, the more cracks start showing. These machines, they're not just lifeless enemies. Some of them act different, some of them talk, some of them show fear, some of them even try to live in their own weird way, and that's when you realize things aren't as black and white as you thought.
I'm the leader of this village. Those who reside here desire nothing more than to live a peaceful existence.
And then the game just keeps going. You don't just finish it once and call it a day. First playthrough is just one perspective. You go again, see things from another angle, and suddenly stuff starts clicking into place. Then the third time, the whole damn game changes. New mechanics, new events, actual consequences. It stops being a retread and turns into something completely fresh. And by the time you reach the real ending, you're sitting there staring at the screen trying to process everything. This game isn't just telling the story, it's pulling you into it. It's not just asking deep philosophical questions about existence and free will, it's making you wrestle with those ideas through gameplay itself. There are choices, sacrifices, moments where you're forced to make tough calls, and it all feels personal. It's rare for a game to hit that hard, but NieR Automata does it effortlessly. Visually, yeah, it's not the most high-end game out there, but the art direction carries it hard. Environments feel desolate but meaningful, like every abandoned structure, every empty street has a story you'll never fully know. It's not the kind of game that overwhelms you with detail, but it nails atmosphere so well that it doesn't even matter. Metal Gear Rising's Revengeance. This game is pure, unfiltered chaos in the best way possible. Platinum Games took the Metal Gear name, threw out all the sneaky, tactical espionage stuff, and cranked the action up to 11. And man, what they created is one of the most insane, over-the-top, hype-inducing hack-and-slash games ever made. You play as Raiden, a cyborg ninja who can slice through basically anything, and I mean anything. The combat is all about precision, cutting. You can literally slow down time and manually carve enemies into pieces with this ridiculous free slicing mechanic. But the real magic comes from how fast and aggressive everything is. There's no block button, no hiding behind cover. Instead, it's all about parrying. Enemies come at you hard, and the only way to survive is to fight back harder. You read their attacks, time your parries right, and when you do, you don't just defend, you shut them down and counterattack like an absolute beast. And then there's Zandatsu. The best damn mechanic in the game. Land enough hits, and you can go into blade mode, slow time, and carve enemies open to rip out their glowing cyber spine, refilling your energy and keeping the slaughter going non-stop. It never gets old. Every single fight, every encounter is just pure adrenaline, like the game is daring you to go faster, hit harder, and play flashier. But what really sells this game is the boss fights. Every single one of them is just next level. You've got cyborg freaks like Jetstream Sam, Monsoon, Sundowner, each one with their own crazy fighting styles and abilities, and every encounter feels like it was made to push you to your limits. And then there's Senator Armstrong, one of the most legendary final bosses of all time. No spoilers, but let's just say it's one of those fights that sticks with you forever. And the soundtrack, Jesus, this is one of those rare games where the music isn't just good, it's part of the experience. The way the vocals kick in during boss fights, how the intensity ramps up exactly when you need it, there's nothing else like it. Tracks like Rules of Nature, It Has to Be This Way, The Only Thing I Know for Real, these aren't just songs, they're power-ups. You hear them and suddenly you're playing like a god. Story-wise, yeah, it's a Metal Gear game, so there's still a bit of that political nonsense and deep lore floating around, but unlike the main series, Rising doesn't slow down to explain every detail. It knows knows you're here for the action, so it keeps the cutscenes ridiculous and entertaining without getting too bogged down. Raiden himself goes through some crazy character development too, shifting from the controlled, disciplined warrior to someone who just embraces the chaos. Graphically, yeah, it's an older game, but it still holds up. The animations are silky smooth, the effects make every sword swing feel powerful, and the environments, while not the most detailed, do their job well enough to never distract from the real star of the show, the combat. Bottom line, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a must-play for anyone who loves action games. It's short, it's insane, and every second of it is pure concentrated hype. No filler, no downtime, just you, a sword, and the absolute need to cut through everything in your way. If you haven't played this yet, fix that. Darksiders 2. This one's a mix of everything. You've got fast, fluid hack-and-slash combat, but it's also got RPG elements, open-world exploration, Zelda-style dungeons, loot systems, and even some Prince of Persia-style platforming. It's like someone took a bunch of different genres, smashed them together, and somehow made it all work. You play as Death, the most badass of the Four Horsemen, and right from the start, you can tell he's nothing like War from the first game. He's faster, more agile, dual-wielding sickles like an absolute maniac. Combat is all about movement. You're constantly dodging, flipping, chaining attacks together, and just flowing through enemies like a damn ghost. There's no slow, weighty swings here. It's all speed and style, and the weapon system is absolute freaking good. You've got your fast dual sides for main attacks, but then you can equip all kinds of secondary weapons, giant hammers, axes, claws, gauntlets, each one changing your combat style completely. Some are slow but hit like a truck, others let you zip around like a ninja. And then there's the loot. Randomized weapons, armor pieces, special effects like lifesteal or extra crit damage. It's got just enough RPG depth to keep you hunting for better gear without drowning you in stats. But here's the thing, this game isn't just about fighting. Darksiders 2 is a lot of exploration, puzzles, and dungeon crawling. You're riding across massive open areas on your skeletal horse, hopping between ruins, solving environmental puzzles, climbing walls, running along them, Prince of Persia style, all while searching for keys, artifacts, and loot. The level design is just solid. It's got that classic Zelda-like feel where dungeons introduce new mechanics, make you use them in clever ways, and then throw a boss at you to test everything you've learned. And speaking of bosses, man, some of these fights are huge. You're going up against massive creatures, dodging their giant attacks, trying to find an opening, all while managing your abilities and gear. Some fights are straight up Shadow of the Colossus level, where you're climbing these giant beasts mid-battle just to take them down. It never gets old. The story is set in parallel to the first game, but this time it's all about Death trying to clear War's name and undo the whole apocalypse mess. The plot itself is solid, but honestly, Death just carries the whole thing. He's cocky, sarcastic, and just does not care about the politics of heaven and hell. He's here to do the job and nothing is gonna stop him. The voice acting, perfect. Michael Wincott gives Death this dry, badass tone that makes him instantly likable. Astral Chain. This game is straight up one of the most unique hack-and-slash experiences out there, and it's 100% because of how the combat works. Platinum Games once again took their signature fast-paced action style and flipped it on its head by making you control two characters at once, and somehow they made it work in a way that feels incredibly smooth once you get the hang of it. You play as a futuristic cop in a cyberpunkish world that's being invaded by these interdimensional creatures called chimeras, and instead of just slicing through them solo like in most action games, you actually control one of these beasts, your Legion, while fighting alongside it in real time. It's almost like a mix of traditional hack-and-slash combat and puppet mechanics, where you're not just slashing and dodging, but also commanding your Legion to attack, restrain enemies, or pull off crazy combo setups. At first, it feels overwhelming. You're moving, dodging, and attacking while also directing your Legion separately, but once it clicks, oh man, it feels amazing. You can have your Legion wrap around an enemy with the Astral Chain to tie them up, launch them into the air, and then both of you just start wrecking them at the same time. The synergy between you and your Legion is where the game truly shines. You're not just fighting, you're coordinating a full-on beatdown. And the game doesn't just give you one legion, there are 5 different types, each with their own abilities. You've got the Sword Legion for precise strikes, the Arrow Legion for ranged attacks, the Arm Legion for heavy hits, the Beast Legion for crazy speed and mobility, and the Axe Legion for defense and power. And swapping between them mid-fight feels so good. It's like Devil May Cry weapon switching, but instead of just different weapons, you're controlling completely different fighting styles on the fly. But here's the thing, Astral Chain isn't just combat, it's also part detective game. Since you're a cop, a big chunk of the game involves investigating crime scenes, talking to NPCs, gathering evidence, and even doing some side missions that aren't all about combat. And while, yeah, they're not as flashy as the fights, they actually help break up the pacing so the action never feels too overwhelming. Visually, this game is a beast for the Switch. It's got this beautiful cyberpunk meets anime art style with a mix of neon lights, high-tech cityscapes, and some crazy, surreal astral environments. And the soundtrack, pure hype. The mix of electronic beats and orchestral tracks just hits, especially during big fights. Story-wise, it's got that classic Platinum Games over-the-top anime vibe. You've got conspiracies, secret organizations, a brother-sister protagonist setup where you choose which one you want to play as, and plenty of big dramatic cutscenes. It's not the deepest story out there, but it keeps things interesting enough to keep pushing forward. No More Heroes 3. No More Heroes 3 is loud, messy, and weird in the best way. It doesn't care about looking polished or being balanced, it just throws you into absolute chaos and expects you to roll with it. Travis Touchdown is back, and this time, he's not just fighting assassins, he's fighting aliens. The story is simple, but insane. Some alien warlord named Fu shows up on Earth with his gang of intergalactic killers. They want to take over the planet, and Travis isn't having it. So he does what he always does. He pulls out his beam katana and starts chopping them up. That's all the setup you get. The game throws you straight into the action, and from there it only gets crazier. Every boss is unique, and the fights feel like they were pulled from 10 different genres. One minute you're in a standard sword fight, the next you're in a mecha battle or a retro RPG. The game never lets you settle into a routine, and that's what makes it fun. Combat is fast and simple. You swing your beam katana, dodge attacks at the last second, and pull off wrestling moves that make every fight feel brutal. The Death Glove gives you special abilities, like launching enemies or slamming them into the ground. When you land a big hit, the game slows down for a second, making everything feel even better. It's stylish without being complicated. Then there's the open world, and yeah, it's bad. It feels empty, and driving around on Travis's hoverbike is awkward, but somehow that just makes it funnier. Instead of trying to make a big, living world, the game leans into the absurdity. You'll spend your time doing stupid part-time jobs like mowing grass, picking up trash, and fixing toilets. It's pointless, but it fits the game's tone. This game isn't for everyone. It's rough, weird, and doesn't care about modern game design. But if you want a hack and slash game that feels completely different from anything else, this is one you should try. Onimusha Warlords. Onimusha Warlords is an old-school action game that still holds up today. It's like Resident Evil with samurai, and that mix just works. You get tank controls, fixed camera angles, and puzzles, but instead of zombies, you're slicing up demons with a katana. The story is simple, but cool. You play as Samanosuke, a samurai trying to rescue a kidnapped princess, but instead of fighting bandits or rival clans, he ends up taking on a bunch of demons working for a warlord who made a deal with them. It's got that classic 90s Capcom vibe, with serious on the surface, but kind of cheesy in a fun way. Combat is straightforward but satisfying. You slash enemies, block attacks, and time counter strikes for instant kills. You also get elemental weapons, one with fire, one with lightning, and one with wind, and they all have special moves that wreck enemies. It's not as fast as modern hack and slash games, but it feels precise. The game makes you pay attention instead of just mashing buttons. You also absorb enemy souls with a gauntlet. Red souls let you upgrade weapons, yellow ones heal you, and blue ones restore magic. It adds a little strategy since you need to decide when to grab them instead of attacking. The game isn't long. You can beat it in around 5 hours, but it's packed with cool moments like boss fights against giant demons and puzzles that make you stop and think for a bit. There's even a second playable character, Kaede, who has her own sections. She doesn't have magic weapons like Samanosuke, but she's faster and has throwing knives. Visually, the pre-rendered backgrounds still still look decent, even if the character models are a little dated. The remaster cleaned things up, but it's still very much a PS2 era game. The music is great though, with that mix of traditional Japanese instruments and dramatic orchestral tracks. If you like classic action games, this one is worth playing. It's short, fun, and still feels unique. It may not be as deep as later hack and slash games, but it's got that Capcom charm that makes it hard to put down. Ryse Son of Rome. Ryse Son of Rome is one of those games that feels like it was designed to be a visual showcase first and a deep gameplay experience second. This was a launch title for the Xbox One, and even now, years later, it still looks incredible. The level of detail in the armor, the lighting, the environments, it all feels like it was made to impress, and honestly, it still does. You play as Marius Titus, a Roman soldier whose family gets slaughtered by barbarians. What starts as a simple revenge story quickly turns into a full-blown war campaign, taking you across massive battles, burning cities, and political betrayals. It's cinematic as hell. The game constantly throws epic moments at you, huge battles where soldiers clash in formation, siege weapons, raining destruction, and slow-motion executions that make every kill feel brutal. Now, let's talk about the combat. It's simple, but damn, it feels satisfying. You're not pulling off long combos like in Devil May Cry or juggling enemies in the air. Instead, it's all about timing blocking, countering, and chaining together brutal executions. The game even slows down time to highlight the most brutal moments, like stabbing a guy through the throat or slicing off a limb. And while the animations do repeat, they never stop looking cool. Every fight feels heavy, like you're really swinging a sword, not just button mashing through waves of enemy. That said, the combat doesn't really evolve much. You unlock new executions, sure, but you're mostly doing the same thing from start to finish. The game tries to keep things fresh with formations, where you and your fellow soldiers raise shields to block arrows or push forward against enemies, but those moments are more about spectacle than gameplay depth. Still, it's fun for what it is, short, sharp, and brutally effective. What really makes Ryse stand out is the presentation. It's hands down one of the best looking games of its time, and even now it holds up ridiculously well. The environments are stunning, Roman streets full of detail, massive colosseums, burning forests, and massive battles happening in the background. The cinematics are just as polished, making everything feel larger than life. The way characters move, the expressions on their faces, it all adds to the experience, making it feel more like an interactive movie than a traditional game. The story itself was, it's pretty straightforward. There's betrayal, there's war, and there's a lot of yelling about honor, Rome, and revenge. Marius is your typical stoic warrior, doing whatever it takes to protect the empire, and while the plot doesn't break any new ground, it keeps you engaged just enough to push forward. It's got that classic historical drama vibe, full of conspiracies and larger-than-life figures, even if it plays fast and loose with actual history. The biggest downside thought was that it's damn short. You can finish the whole thing in about 6 or 7 hours, and since the combat doesn't have a ton of variety, it doesn't leave much reason to replay it. But honestly, for what it is, Ryse Son of Rome is a blast while it lasts. It's one of those games that might not be deep, but it knows exactly what it wants to be. A cinematic, over-the-top action game with jaw-dropping visuals and satisfyingly brutal combat. If you like historical settings, hack and slash combat, and games that just look damn good, this one's worth checking out. It might not be a masterpiece, but it's a fun, bloody ride through ancient Rome. Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno is one of those games that came out, made some noise, and then kind of faded into the background, but it really shouldn't have. It's basically God of War with a twisted, nightmarish spin, throwing you straight into a brutally dark reimagining of hell. You play as Dante, a crusader who's done some seriously messed up things, and after his sins catch up with him, he finds himself chasing after his kidnapped love, Beatrice, straight into the depths of the underworld. And this hell, it's not just lava and demons, it's grotesque, disgusting, and filled with disturbing imagery that sticks with you you long after you've put the controller down. The combat is fast. Dante swings around his massive scythe, tearing through enemies with combos that feel straight out of the God of War playbook. You got light attacks, heavy attacks, aerial juggles, and magic powers that let you unleash holy devastation. The animations are smooth, the controls are tight, and every hit feels brutal. You're constantly unlocking new moves, making the combat more fun as you go, and you even get to decide whether you want to lean into holy abilities, healing divine light attacks, or demonic ones, pure destruction and chaos. The real highlight though is the world design. Each circle of hell is unique, filled with horrors ripped straight from Dante Alighieri's Inferno. Lust is a twisted, flesh-covered nightmare filled with grotesque creatures. Gluttony is this disgusting, bloated wasteland where everything is rotting. Greed is full of tortured souls trapped in golden chains. It's one of those games where you just want to see what's next, even if what's next is something that'll make your skin crawl. The enemy design is just as wild. You've got damned souls twisted into monstrous forms, grotesque demons, and bosses that are straight up disturbing. One of the most infamous ones is Cleopatra, a giant grotesque version of the Egyptian queen who summons damned infants that crawl out of her. Well, let's just say it's something you don't forget. The game isn't afraid to push boundaries, and while some of it feels over the top, it definitely gives the game a unique identity. The story itself is simple but effective. Dante starts off as this arrogant warrior, but as he descends deeper into hell, he's forced to confront every terrible thing he's done. The game constantly throws flashbacks at you, revealing just how broken and corrupted he really is. And then there's Lucifer, lurking in the background, playing the long game, manipulating Dante at every turn. The voice acting is solid, the cinematics are well done, and while the writing isn't exactly deep, it does the job. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 is a straight up power fantasy. You don't just play as a soldier, you're a goddamn walking war machine, smashing through waves of Tyranids like they're made of paper. This game doesn't do cover-based shooting or slow, methodical combat. It's all about charging headfirst into the chaos, ripping apart enemies with a chainsword, and unloading bolter rounds that hit like mini explosions. If you played the first Space Marine, you already know the deal. Captain Titus is back, this time demoted to Lieutenant because the Imperium doesn't exactly hand out promotions for being too badass. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're in the middle of a galactic war and it's up to you to carve a bloody path through the swarms of Tyranids threatening humanity. Combat feels heavy. Every hit lands with a crunch. Every shot booms like it's tearing enemies apart. You're never just chipping away at health bars. You're obliterating enemies, turning them into chunks of meat. And the best part is that no cover system. You heal by getting in there and wrecking enemies. It forces you to play aggressively to keep the momentum going, and it makes every fight feel intense. And this time, it's not just a solo experience. There's a full 3-player co-op mode, meaning you and your friends can team up to lay waste to the Tyranid swarms together. The first game was fun alone, but now you can go full Exterminatus with a squad, and that changes everything. Visually, the game is a beast. The environments are massive, the lighting makes every battlefield feel oppressive, and the sheer number of enemies on screen is just ridiculous. The Tyranids move like a horde, climbing walls, swarming you from all sides, and you have to be quick, brutal, and relentless to survive. At its core, Space Marine 2 is pure, unfiltered violence done right. If you love hack and slash games that make you feel unstoppable, this one is an easy recommendation. It's not just another Warhammer game, it's one of the best action games of the year. Lollipop Chainsaw. Lollipop Chainsaw isn't here to make you think, it's not trying to be deep, and it sure as hell isn't worried about being realistic. It just throws you into a ridiculous, blood-soaked, candy-colored world and tells you to have fun, and I mean really, that's exactly what makes it great. You play as Juliet Starling, a high school cheerleader with an almost comically perfect life, except for the fact that zombies just invaded her school, but that's no big deal. Here, it turns out she comes from a family of zombie hunters, and she's very good at her job. She's got a massive chainsaw, an acrobatic fight fighting style to make every battle feel like a mix between a music video and a horror movie. Oh, and her boyfriend's head, he's just a talking head hanging from her belt. Kind of weird at first, but, well, the gameplay is classic hack and slash goodness. It's got that satisfying mix of light and heavy attacks, flashy combos, and plenty of stylish finishing moves. But where Lollipop Chainsaw really shines is in how absurd it lets itself be. You're not just hacking up zombies, you're doing it with cheerleading moves, slow motion decapitations, and rainbow-colored explosions. It takes everything over the top and cranks it to 11. The enemies are just as ridiculous as the game itself. You're not fighting generic zombies here. Instead, you're up against an undead punk rocker who screams heavy metal attacks, a zombie overlord that speaks only in Shakespearean dialogue, and a goth-themed boss that floats around spewing poetry while trying to kill you. It's the kind of weird, unexpected creativity that keeps the game fun from start to finish. Visually, Lollipop Chainsaw is bright, colorful, and completely unashamed of its goofy aesthetic. It looks like a comic book mixed with a cheesy horror movie, and somehow it just works. The exaggerated character designs, the over-the-top effects, and the way every fight feels like a choreographed spectacle, it all just fits. Now, is it a perfect game? Hell no. The combat, while fun, isn't as deep as something like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. Sometimes the camera can be a little janky, and the game is definitely more about style and some, eye candy, more than challenge, I mean. But that's the thing. Lollipop Chainsaw isn't trying to be some ultra-serious, mechanically precise action game. It just wants to be a fun, dumb, ridiculously entertaining ride. So if you're looking for a game that takes itself seriously, this ain't it. But if you want to chainsaw your way through a zombie apocalypse with a talking head for a boyfriend while rock music blasts in the background, then my friend, Lollipop Chainsaw is exactly what you need. Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Alright, so Castlevania Lords of Shadow is one of those games that got some mixed reactions when it dropped, but if you go into it without expecting some old school Castlevania experience, you're in for a damn good time. This game is a full-on cinematic hack and slash adventure that leans hard into epic storytelling, grand environments, and weighty, satisfying combat. It's dark, it's moody, and it pulls a lot of influence from stuff like God of War, but that's not a bad thing. You play as Gabriel Belmont, a warrior of the Brotherhood of Light who's out for revenge after his wife gets killed. Classic setup, right? But the way Lords of Shadow tells its story makes it feel massive. This isn't just about some vampire hunting adventure. It's a full-blown quest across ruined cities, cursed forests, and frozen wastelands, all while Gabriel slowly gets pulled into something way bigger than he expected. The game just feels epic, like you're on this brutal, tragic journey that keeps getting darker the deeper you go. And then there's the combat. It's got that God of War style weight to it, with Gabriel using his combat cross, basically a chain whip hybrid that makes every swing feel brutal. You're not just button mashing here, you've got light and heavy attacks, blocks, dodges, parries, and a bunch of different magic abilities that add layers to the combat. Light magic lets you heal with each hit, while dark magic boosts your damage, and switching between them mid-fight actually gives you a reason to think about your attacks instead of just spamming combos. It's one of those combat systems that start simple but really opens up once you start unlocking new moves and upgrades. And the boss fight's insane. You're not just taking on standard enemies. Lords of Shadow goes all in with giant creatures, twisted monsters, and full-on Shadow of the Colossus style fights where you have to climb up massive titans just to take them down. It makes every major encounter feel huge, like you're actually fighting something way beyond your power level, and that adds so much to the game's atmosphere. Speaking of atmosphere, this game is gorgeous. Even today, the environments hold up. Every level looks like a dark fantasy painting come to life, with gothic castles, misty graveyards, and eerie forests that make you feel like you're stepping through a dark fairy tale. And the soundtrack, absolutely haunting. It's got this sweeping orchestral score that makes even the quietest moments feel grand and cinematic. The prototype. Now this is what happens when a hack and slash game decides it doesn't need swords, just pure carnage. Prototype is one of those games that just feels violent in the best way possible. You're not some noble warrior or demon hunter, you're Alex Mercer, a walking biological weapon who can slice, smash, and tear through anything in your path. This game doesn't care about looking flashy or stylish, it's all about raw destructive power, and damn does it deliver. The story is actually pretty interesting. Alex wakes up in a morgue with no memory of how he got there, but suddenly he's got insane shape-shifting powers, and a whole city full of people who either want to kill him or get the hell away from him. Manhattan is being overrun by a mysterious virus, and Alex is right in the middle of it, trying to figure out what happened to him, while also getting way too comfortable turning people into chunks of meat. The way the game lets you absorb people's memories by literally consuming them is such a cool way to drip feed the story, but let's be real, the main reason you play Prototype is for the combat. You don't just fight people, you obliterate them. Alex can shapeshift his body into a bunch of different weapons, massive claws that rip enemies apart, a giant blade arm that can cut tanks in half, brutal hammer fists that send shockwaves through the streets, and a whip-like tendril that lets you snatch helicopters out of the sky. Every attack feels like it has real weight to it, and the way enemies get ragdolled across the city just never gets old. And the movement is absolutely ridiculous in a so fun way. You're not just running down the street, you're sprinting up the sides of skyscrapers, leaping over entire city blocks, gliding through the air, and slamming down onto enemies from insane heights. It makes every mission fun, because even when you're just going from point A to point B, you're launching yourself across the city like some unstoppable force of destruction. The enemy variety is solid too. You've got military forces constantly trying to take you down with tanks and helicopters, plus these grotesque infected monsters that turn New York into a war zone. The game keeps things hectic, and since you can steal vehicles, hijack weapons, and absorb enemies to disguise yourself, there are so many ways to approach combat. Visually, yeah, it's a bit rough around the edges, but the sheer chaos on screen makes up for it. The city gets wrecked as the infection spreads, and by the end, Manhattan looks like a battlefield straight out of a horror movie. And while the game doesn't have a deep emotional story, Alex Mercer himself is just cool. He's not some heroic figure, he's an anti-hero with no problems slaughtering everything in his way, and that ruthless attitude makes him stand out from other action game protagonists. You know, if there's one complaint, it's that the side missions can get repetitive. A lot of them boil down to go here, kill everything, but honestly, that's Prototype in a nutshell. It's not about complex mechanics or deep storytelling, it's about being an absolute monster, wrecking an entire city, and feeling unstoppable while doing it. If you want a hack and slash game that ditches swords and elegance for pure destruction, Prototype is exactly what you're looking for. Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is straight up one of the most fun hack and slash games to come out in years. It's got that perfect mix of slick combat, over-the-top action, and a killer soundtrack that makes every fight feel like a freaking music video. If you love games that don't take themselves too seriously but still deliver an insanely polished experience, this one's a must-play. You play as Chai, a wannabe rock star who gets caught up in a shady cybernetic experiment and accidentally ends up with an MP3 player fused into his frickin' heart. That means everything around him, his movements, attacks, even the damn environment, syncs to the beat of the music, and let me tell you, it's addicting. The combat doesn't just encourage you to stay on rhythm, it outright rewards you for it. Attacks hit harder, combos flow smoother, and even dodging feels more stylish when you time it with the beat. It's like playing Devil May Cry, but your combo game is your sense of rhythm. The gameplay is just pure joy. You're slicing through enemies with Chai's makeshift guitar weapon, pulling off flashy aerial combos, and dodging attacks like you're part of some synchronized rock concert. The best part? Even if you're not perfect at staying on beat, the game doesn't punish you too hard, but when you do lock into the rhythm and start stringing together perfectly timed hits, damn, it feels good. And the enemy variety? Solid. You've got security bots, crazy mechanical beasts, and big boss fights that all move in sync with the soundtrack. The game constantly throws new challenges at you, keeping things fresh. The bosses in particular are some of the most creative fights I've seen in a hack and slash game, with each one having its own unique mechanics that force you to adapt and keep the rhythm going. But honestly, what makes Hi-Fi Rush special is the vibe. It's got this colorful, animated art style that feels like a playable Saturday morning cartoon, mixed with an attitude that's just fun without being cringy. Chai himself is a lovable goofball, and the whole cast is packed with personality. You've got a talking robotic cat, a badass hacker ally, and a bunch of quirky villains that feel straight out of a comic book. It's all super lighthearted, but it works. It's also super accessible. Unlike a lot of rhythm-based games, Hi-Fi Rush doesn't force you to be perfect, it just encourages you to play in sync with the music, so whether you're a rhythm game pro or just someone who loves stylish action, it's a blast. Long story short, this is one of the freshest, most creative hack and slash games in years. It's got energy, personality, and some of the smoothest, most rewarding combat out there. If you haven't played Hi-Fi Rush yet, fix that immediately. Final Fantasy 16. But let's just get this out of the way. Final Fantasy 16 is not your typical Final Fantasy game. Yeah, it's got the name, the crystals, and the summons, but let's be real, this thing plays way more like a straight up hack and slash action game than a traditional RPG. And you know what? That's totally fine, because the combat here is insane. You play as Clive Rosfield, who's basically the most battle-hardened, revenge-fueled protagonist the series has ever had. The story kicks off with some Game of Thrones levels of political drama, betrayal, and brutal wars between kingdoms, but what really steals the show is the Ekon battles. These aren't just little summon animations, these are full-blown god-tier kaiju fights where you're thrown down with massive creatures like Ifrit, Bahamut, and Shiva in the most over-the-top cinematic combat sequences you've ever seen in a Final Fantasy game. And speaking of combat, this is where the game just goes off. It's designed by Ryota Suzuki, the guy who worked on Devil May Cry 5 and Dragon's Dogma, and you feel it. Clive doesn't just swing a sword, he's flipping, dashing, juggling enemies mid-air, and pulling off some ridiculous combo chains using different elemental powers from the Akons he absorbs. It's all real-time, no turn-based stuff here, just pure, fluid, high-speed action. If you've ever wanted Final Fantasy to go full-on Devil May Cry, this is it. But it's not just mindless button mashing. Every ability you unlock adds a new layer to the combat. You've got Phoenix's fiery dashes, Garuda's aerial grabs, Titan's massive earth-shattering punches, and a whole mix of abilities that let you really customize how you want to fight. And once you start unlocking more of them, man, you feel unstoppable. The world itself is beautiful too. This is one of the darkest and grittiest Final Fantasy games ever made. Kingdoms are at war, people are being enslaved, and magic is literally draining the life out of the land. It's a depressing world, but that just makes the journey even more intense. The characters, all top tier. Clive is one of the most brutal Final Fantasy protagonists we've ever had, and the supporting cast, especially Sid and Jill, bring so much depth to the story. Now, is the game perfect? Nah. If you're looking for deep RPG mechanics, there's not a ton here. Side quests can be a bit fetch questy, and some fans might miss the traditional party system since you mostly fight solo, but honestly, the combat, the cinematics, and the boss battles more than make up for it. If you're into hack and slash games, this is one of the best Final Fantasy titles you could ever ask for. It's got huge spectacle, amazing combat, and some of the most insane boss fights in the franchise. So yeah, if you haven't played Final Fantasy 6 yet, do yourself a favor and check it out. You will not regret it.